The American Dragon, Bryan Danielson, is about to take us all on one final ride as he gears up for AEW All In Wembley Stadium to face off against Swerve Strickland for the All Elite Wrestling World Championship. And he does this at a time where he is more broken down and beat up than ever, and where you could argue he may be more motivated than he's ever been to finally win gold in All Elite Wrestling. And in this video, we're going to examine this version of the Bryan Danielson character, this gunslinger who's in the twilight of his career, who seems to just want one final moment of glory before he walks into the sunset and ends one of the greatest careers we've ever seen. Before we get into it though, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. This is the final countdown of the American Dragon. If we go back and look at the American Dragon Bryan Danielson when he first debuted in All Elite Wrestling, the character that he was portraying is significantly different than where he is now in 2024. Back in 2021, Bryan Danielson made it clear in that first press conference he did that he was not motivated by this desire to have great matches. He was not motivated by a desire to teach younger guys or take people under his wing or anything like that. Bryan Danielson was strictly motivated by going out there against the so-called best in the world and teaching those people what that phrase truly means and reminding everyone who Bryan Danielson is. Because for the past almost decade before that, what they got wasn't Bryan Danielson, it was Daniel Bryan, a very different character, and one that didn't have the anger, the ferocity, and the unrelenting desire to do whatever it took to win a wrestling match. And if we go through the journey that Bryan has been on, it has been one of a guy who, at that point, when he first debuted, was being cheered by everyone, but was still a heel, coming out of the heel tunnel, doing heel things like holding on to the submission for as long as he possibly could without getting disqualified, doing things like riling up his opponents mid-match, disrespecting them in promos, doing anything he could to get a rise out of them. He's gone from that to someone who kind of understands his place in the world. And that is the beautiful thing about this character. And this shift really took into effect when he announced in the fallout of All Out 2023 that 2024 would be his final year of full-time action as a professional wrestler. He had made a promise to his daughter Birdie that by the time her 7th birthday rolls around in 2024, he would be at home full-time and focus his full attention on his family. A very noble cause, and one that the character of Bryan Danielson was not really concerned about until that point. Because before then, he was only focused on going out there and showing the so-called best in the world what that phrase truly meant. He was only concerned with proving that he is the greatest to ever do this. And ever since he's cut that promo, we've seen a Bryan Danielson who, before, when his opponents would go and put their hands out to show respect, would either attack them, scoff at them, walk away. Instead, we are now seeing him shake people's hands. We are seeing him engage in a positive way. We have seen the shift of Bryan Danielson from a heel who knows he's the best in the world to a face, a good guy who understands he's the best, but isn't gonna rub it in your face because he knows that the feeling that he gets in that ring, the moment that he gets when he wins a match in front of a crowd, all of that is fleeting at this point. He is in his final countdown. He is in the twilight of his career, the sunset, whatever we want to call it. Bryan Danielson's career is coming to an end, and he wants to enjoy this as much as possible. That is why he went out there and has had dream matches with the likes of Zack Sabre Jr., with the likes of Will Ospreay, and that is why he even went out of his way to show respect to a guy like Eddie Kingston, someone who he has had no problem rebuffing before, because at this point, Bryan understands that enjoying the moment means more and is better for him than being motivated by anger and hate. And that's what's made the past couple of months so cool. One of the things that fans haven't really been picking up on is the beatdown nature of Bryan. And obviously there are real undertones to that. Bryan has suffered many injuries over the past few years, but especially since he announced his retirement, we have seen the wear and tear on Bryan's body really take into effect, and they've been playing this into the story. Bryan Danielson wrestling with the medical tape around his shoulders and neck. Bryan Danielson being injured by that Tiger Driver 91, a move that he, at this point, is still recovering from, but fighting through the pain, fighting through the injury, and fighting through the adversity to still come out on top. Go into the Owen Hart Cup, win it, and lock in a spot against Swerve Strickland for the AEW World Championship. And this version of Bryan is the exact version that I think you want to see win that belt, because he is someone who we all see is falling apart before our very eyes. He is someone who we all see is having and dealing with these nagging injuries. He's someone who is arguably at one of the weaker points as far as his ability goes in the ring in a storyline perspective that he's ever been in. And that is what makes this so great, because despite all of that, he is winning. And he's doing this because he understands that he doesn't have much time left. Bryan Danielson is that old gunslinger. He is that cowboy who's looking for his final bounty. Bryan Danielson understands that this is his final chance to win a world championship in AEW, something that his fans have been pleading and asking to see ever since he debuted in the company a few years ago. He understands that moment at Wembley Stadium in front of tens of thousands of people, holding up that world title and getting a proper world title run, is something that even Daniel Bryan didn't really get to feel in its full effect, because he was injured shortly thereafter. But this time, Bryan is in full control of what happens. This time, Bryan understands that when he does go away in the fall of 2024, it's not going to be because of an injury. It's not going to be because of something someone else did. It is going to be because Bryan Danielson set that timeline for himself. And if you ask me, there is no better way for Bryan to walk into the sunset and end his career than by winning the AEW World Championship at Wembley Stadium. Because that is what the fans deserve. That is what this version of the Bryan Danielson character deserves. And that is what is going to make the moment in the main event of AEW's biggest show of the year. And even coming out of that, there's many different ways you could go about this. There's the way of Bryan Danielson relinquishing the title the week after and calling it quits right then and there. But then there's building up to another pay-per-view, one that is just a month after All In, that being Wrestle Dream in the Tacoma Dome, Bryan Danielson's hometown, which might be poised to see two hometown heroes in Swerve Strickland and Bryan Danielson go at it in what will likely be Bryan's final match. We'll see what happens and if we actually get to that point. But one thing's for sure, this version of the Bryan Danielson character is one of the most likable and ultimate underdogs that we've ever seen. And like many of you, I can't wait to see what happens next.